Charlotte, we spend plenty of time together, as people on Instagram will know, because they've seen us goofing around, and they've definitely seen you brushing your teeth.
I'm really good at brushing my teeth.
Tell people about you, though, and what you do and who you are.
Well, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, and I help people to reduce their anxiety and build their confidence. And building confidence is probably the thing that I'm most passionate about. I want people to reach their full potential, and quite often people get stuck, and that's when they come and see me.
And when you say confidence, talk to me about what that even means, really.
Confidence is about being completely and utterly comfortable with who you are. Warts and all the bits of you that, people may not see or know about you, but it's being totally comfortable with the person that you are, just accepting every part of you.
I love that. And so, what? I've got so many questions. I basically don't know where to start.
Yeah.
So a lot of people come to you then and say, I'm not feeling that confident, or I'm struggling with X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And what can you help them with? Can you help them with that? How does that work?
Yeah, well, people quite often come to me. Obviously, hypnotherapy is not everyone knows about hypnotherapy, but hypnotherapy is a really gentle therapeutic approach that helps people free themselves from limiting beliefs or difficult pasts or difficult childhoods or things that have gone wrong along the way. And people tend to come to me when the wheels have come off the bus.
So one thing that I think people assume is that you're either confident or you're not. I get this a lot. People tell me with social media that they're not confident, and you must get this a lot.
I do. Well, confidence is a skill. It's not a personality trait. And I say that all the time, but it's absolutely true. Confidence is a skill that you can build. You can work on it. Your confidence isn't set. It's something you can do something about, and it's a skill like anything else. So you've got to practice the skills of confidence. It's like a muscle, like anything else. You've got to work it. You've got to keep trying, and you've got to push yourself outside your comfort zone. You can't just stay with the status quo. I'm sure you felt that when you were first going on social media. It's really, really easy to stay in your comfort zone, but is that where you want to be?
Exactly.
And when you feel that, I talk about self-doubt a lot, but when you feel that self-doubt come in, you've got to challenge it. You've got to push yourself out of your comfort zone. And self-doubt only comes in when you're trying something new. You're not ever going to feel self-doubt if you're doing the same thing that you've always done all your life.
Because you're going to be very comfortable with that.
You can stay exactly where you are. But what you're not changing, you're choosing. You're choosing to stay where you are.
And talk to me about self-doubt, because obviously everybody has it at some point. But why? Why do we have that, and what's that all about? Because it's bloody annoying, isn't it?
Yeah. But self-doubt I always say self-doubt is not a signal to stop. And people quite often, when they feel self-doubt, they just stop. They say, oh gosh, I'm too afraid.
But the greatest, you have many pearls of wisdom, obviously, but the greatest pearl of wisdom that I've ever taken from our time together, and I have it written on a Post-it note, and I tell anyone who'll listen, is that you taught me that self-doubt is a reason to take action.
Yeah.
Because often, straight away, when you feel that self-doubt, you go into this spiral of I'm rubbish and I'm not going to do anything. And you go down that path rather than actually going, right, why am I feeling like this and what am I going to do about it?
Yeah, and self-doubt is where it kicks in, that fear of failure or that fear of people seeing you or what they're going to think. And self-doubt is a signal to take action. It's a signal that you need to learn something. It's a signal it's actually a signal that you're moving outside your comfort zone.
Yes.
And you're trying something new. And if you didn't feel self-doubt, it would be really surprising, because every time you try something new, self-doubt does kick in.
Yeah.
And rather than seeing it as an enemy, see it as a sign that, you're learning something new. And it's okay to make mistakes. I think people are so afraid of failure and what might happen if I don't get it absolutely perfect, that they never take the steps. And you've got to take action if you want to change something.
And what I can tell you is 100% since you taught me that, and that's why it's my biggest, most game-changer thing you've ever said to me, because 100% of the time now, when I take the action, that self-doubt is gone, often in minutes.
It does.
Often it's that I've made up a scenario and I start worrying about that a client hates me because of something I've said or done. So now I think, right, what am I going to do? Instead of worrying about it, I'm thinking I'm rubbish. What am I going to do? So I'll email them. I'll pick up the phone to them. That self-doubt goes away instantly. We can choose to control it most of the time.
There's another really good one. There's a lovely piece of research that was done by a researcher called Olivia Reams, and she talked about doing it badly. And I like that as well. But, the idea that trying something new, you're expecting to fail, you're expecting to make mistakes, you're expecting to do it badly. And if you tell yourself, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it badly, then it kind of excuses you from the perfection and that worry about perfectionism. So you just say, well, I'm just going to give it a go. And it might not be perfect and it might not be right, but I'm going to learn, because every mistake that you make, you learn something from it.
Yeah.
And that's really, really wonderful, because then that's really liberating to expect to fail. And if you expect to fail at it and say, it's okay, I'm looking forward to failing, then you will learn something from it and you'll get better at it.
And now you've made me think now straight away about perfectionism.
Yeah,
because
perfectionism.
That's one of the most common things, again, that I get with people on social media. And I'll say, I don't want to post it because it's not all perfect. And, my grid has to look perfect. And if my reel's not 100%, and I'm no good at reels, so I'm just not going to do any. And I have the same conversation with them, that actually just be ready for it not to be perfect, and just say, I'm working on it and I'm making progress, and just I'm going to put it out there, and if it works then great, and if it doesn't work, then fine, I'll try something new. And as soon as you switch that mentality, they're like, oh yeah, what's the worst that's going to happen? It'll be gone in a day, and you move on, and they start to learn from it, and the ball starts to roll. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Perfectionism as well. I think perfectionism is the thing that I battle with most, but I make myself do things, and is that doing it badly again? I'm going to do it badly. And actually, trying things out with a testing mentality is a really good way of doing it as well. Messy action is better than no action. Just seeing what might happen, but just learning from every experience that there's something else that I can take out of this. It doesn't have to be perfect. We can get stuck so easily with perfectionism. Like you say, those perfect grids. And, I learned a lot from you about reels, just trying out different things. And they might not work. They might not land very well. But that's okay.
Yeah, it
because
doesn't
you
matter.
learn. And also, with Instagram, you learn something about
your audience from it. So it's always beneficial, even if it's rubbish.
You're mining data, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're finding out, well, what resonates with people, what do people like? And I think I'm always thinking, well, I know that there are people that really are going to enjoy this content, so I'm going to put it out there, and not worrying about what other people think as well, because that's another thing that people worry about, isn't it?
100%, which takes us nicely back to confidence and the fact that it is about being yourself and not worrying what people think. But I think the really hard bit is finding the real you and being comfortable with that yourself, would you say?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time with my clients asking them, and I ask them every week, what strengths and skills have you used this week? What have you done? What do you do well? Because I think quite often we only get asked about our strengths and skills at job interviews. But actually,
Yes.
knowing what your skills are on a daily basis. You know, and some people say, well, I don't have any strengths and skills, but everybody has strengths and
Yeah.
skills. And it's our uniqueness that if you start to embrace who you are as an individual, that what makes you unique, then you don't need to worry about what anyone else is doing. You're not looking over your
No.
shoulder. You can stay in your own lane. But being unique is really liberating. Just think that, well, this is what I bring to the table. This is what makes me special.
It's your USP.
And those strengths and skills, because quite often my clients will say, well, that's not really a strength, or that's not really a skill. And I'll say, but it is. Or they'll say, oh, well, I just do that.
Yeah.
And actually, I want to mine the information to find out, well, what are the strengths and skills that are involved in the things you do well? Let's really think about those, because that is the foundation of confidence. Knowing what makes you unique, what are your strengths and skills, and taking action.
Yeah.
Working out, you know, what am I going to do next?
I think one of the biggest things as well is that, like I say, so many people don't actually really know who they are and
No.
how to peel that back and work out. You end up over time putting walls up that you don't even know that you've put up. I didn't for years and years. I'd got to this point where I had walls everywhere and I wasn't my true self anymore.
Yeah.
And you do over time. You don't realize that you do because of jobs, because of relationships, because of friendships, whatever it might be, the reasons why you morph into almost a different person. It's hard to peel that back.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing I think that helped me with that, to sort of get really comfortable with just being myself and who I even was and what I even
And
stood for.
enjoy being
was just,
you.
Yeah. It was just being on my own. Being, not as in like a loner, but as in having time on my own and being comfortable with that stillness and time to actually think and time to think, this is what I really enjoy. These are the clothes that I love. These are the things I enjoy, without any interference from any other party.
I think that's really interesting what you've said there as well, is quite often when people come to see me, I'll say to them, what do you enjoy doing? And they'll say, I don't know.
Yes.
And
I was at that point
Yeah.
a few years ago.
what are your passions?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. And part of my job is to really get people to put themselves back in the centre of their world, because we spend so much time pleasing people around
Yes.
us and making
It's like
sure
if you've
everyone
had
else-
nothing else, no one else to worry about,
Yeah.
nothing else to think about, no financial strain,
Yeah.
then what would you spend your time doing if you could do anything in the world?
And that blue sky thinking is really important.
Yeah.
What do you want? What is it that you want your life to look like? And then I help them break it down into manageable bite-sized steps, you know, that they can achieve each week, an actionable step that they can take each week. But in order to do that, we've got to think, what is it that we want? What is that ultimate goal? So imagine the miracle happened and you could change anything that you wanted to change, and you could be anyone you wanted to be. What would you want to be?
And on that point, the biggest thing that I've learned is that you can do any of it.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, most likely, I'll just put that out there. Actually, I'm not going to say you can do everything that you might imagine. But 9 times out of 10, if you said, actually, I don't like my husband, I don't like where I live, I don't like my job, whatever it is
Yeah.
that might, that you're thinking I might want to change, or you might go, I want to become a gardener,
Yeah.
and I want to become a horticultural
Yeah.
expert.
Yeah.
You can do all of that stuff. You can
Yeah.
change it all tomorrow if you wanted to. And that way of thinking suddenly unlocks all those doors and allows you to just go, well, I could do whatever I want, and I can start to take messy action
Yeah.
in that direction.
And a lot of your listeners are going to be thinking about their gardens, and that maybe they want to be on Instagram and they want
Yeah.
to be visible, and they're afraid.
Yes.
And actually it's about, well, what would be different if I wasn't afraid? What would I be able to do if I wasn't fearful? And, what's on the other side of fear? So again, it's breaking it down. Well, what is my ultimate goal?
Yes.
And people talk about manifesting, and and I am not dream catchers and crystals,
And
as
you know I'm
I'm
not.
very
Yeah.
neuroscience based. But manifesting is having something in the sat nav.
It's having a goal.
It's
yeah,
having
exactly.
a goal.
It basically
it's putting it in
is
the
having a
GPS
goal.
and working towards that goal.
Yeah.
And enjoying the ride, enjoying the steps. I know you've enjoyed the last year, those steps that have taken you, and each time you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, you really don't know, how it's going to go, but you know what you want long term, and that's really
It's picturing
important.
that goal in the mind and thinking, that's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm making myself look tit on Instagram,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm coming to a show that pushes me out of my comfort zone, or whatever it might be that you feel a bit uncomfortable with. You've got that clear goal in your mind, and if it was the right goal, that is what you really want to do, it will make you go, that's why I'm doing it. I'm going to push through this, and then before you know it, I'm going to be dancing on Instagram every week. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's what I'm going to be confident in now.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because people say, because I talk about visualization a lot, and people say, well, I don't know whether I can visualize. Now, if they're anxious, I know they're brilliant at visualizing, because you can't be anxious and not be able to visualize
Because
the future.
being anxious is all about imagining the
The
bad
worst
things.
case scenario.
Yeah.
You can imagine it in glorious technicolor, everything going wrong. So when people come to me and they've got a lot of anxiety and they say, I don't know if I can visualize, I say, yeah, but you are. You have so much imagination, because you couldn't be anxious without having that amazing imagination. So we're going to flip it. So, at the moment you're thinking about all the things that might go wrong, but we're going to imagine that a miracle has happened. I've waved a magic wand and everything has gone right. What would it be like instead? And I think I've talked to you before about, there's a really good example of that. If you mustn't think about a blue elephant. Try it now.
I know,
Don't
because you
think
always
about
make me
that.
think about
Don't
the blue
think
elephant
about that blue
every
elephant. You
time.
mustn't think about a blue elephant with a top hat on its head and Wellington boots. You mustn't think about that. It's virtually impossible. So I get, my clients to really think about that and say, so what would you be thinking about instead? When we're thinking about all the things that might go wrong, that's that blue elephant thinking. The brain doesn't understand don't. It doesn't understand no. It just thinks in pictures. So when you're saying, I don't want to be sad anymore, I don't want to be, I don't want to be anxious anymore, the brain is just thinking about you being anxious.
Yeah.
So you've got to be thinking about what would you like instead. So that's when you think about, don't think about a blue elephant. I want you to think about a pink elephant. A
Yeah.
beautiful pink elephant with a straw bonnet on its head and a flower in its trunk. That is the alternative picture. And the brain likes flipping things round, but we have to use, we have to think about what it would be like instead.
Yes, exactly. And so you've got that goal in mind, you're visualizing it,
Yeah.
and you're thinking about it in the right way. The next most important thing that I learned is back to that taking messy action and taking action.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, the biggest thing that I have with when I'm working with people in business or on social media is that people often don't take action. So they get to that point, they've got the goal, they know what they want to achieve. And it sounds daft because I don't think anyone writes their goal down and thinks, I'm not going to do anything towards that goal, and it will just happen like a miracle. But life takes over.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing, I think, is the messy action bit, because that's the bit. Because when you've got that big, scary goal and you think, oh, God, how am I ever going to get there? It seems impossible. But when you take messy action and you think it doesn't matter how I'm going to get there, really, or whether it's going to work or whether I'm going to bite a big chunk off, but just start going in that direction.
Yeah, and also, again, with your listeners, thinking about gardens, people look at a beautiful garden at Chelsea or here at Shrewsbury Flower Festival, and they see that garden and they think, I can never have a garden like that. But actually, it might be that you just need to break it down into bite-sized chunks. So with any goal, breaking it down is really, really important. So, I might just choose a section of my garden that I'm going to plant out, and I'm going to make that bit beautiful. That's the same with goals.
Yeah.
People will say, I want to run a marathon, but they can't run. They don't know, they're not very fit. So it's breaking it right the way back down, and it might be they want to walk around the block each day. It might be that they just need to go and buy some trainers.
Yeah.
It might be that they need to make a plan to go and buy the trainers.
Well, that's what I was just about to say.
Break
The
it
biggest
down.
thing for me is to break it down as much as you can.
Yes.
Starting with making time to actually plan and break the things down.
Yeah.
I write my goals normally at the start of the year in January.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that has helped me this year was to break them down to a minute level. And you know that I work with Roz a lot, and she's great with this sort of thing. And she'll go, but how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
At every level, though, and every time I went down a level, she was like, but how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
And how are you going to do the level down from that?
Yeah.
So
She'd be a great therapist.
yeah. They keep breaking it down, and before you know it, you start taking that messy action, and you're on your way.
Yeah.
You've bought the trainers.
Yeah.
You've walked around the block.
Yeah.
Before, I posted in January saying in January, I've already done some of my goals without even thinking about it. But it's because I wrote them down to such a minute level, and then I started going for them in any which direction. Messy action everywhere. But it starts to happen, and the ball starts to roll. And that's when, then before I know it, 6 months later, here I am at Shrewsbury Flower Show, which was one of my goals to talk at a show like this. But it feels a bit to me like it happened by accident, but it's because I wrote it down, and I wrote down how I was going to get there and all the little steps that was going to get me to there, and then the ball rolled.
So can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do you ever review your goals?
Yes.
To sit down and go through that list and tick them off and say, well done me?
You've asked that question on purpose because you know that I don't. So I am very good at reviewing my goals, but from a critical angle.
Yeah.
So I review them and go, right, well, what haven't I done off my goals? What do I need to reset for the next 6 months? Because I always want to keep going, and I want to, if I've ticked off the goals that I set in January, I want new goals. What I'm not very good at is going, wow, well done, I achieved this.
So that's a really good thing to do for the brain. Turn your to-do list into a to-da list.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I love that too. So if you, if you spend your life writing lists of things that you should do, then it's quite easy to fall into the trap of looking at that list and thinking, I've not done X, Y, and Z. But if you start to look at that list and say, well, actually, let me write down the things I have achieved, then that gives the brain a really good dollop of dopamine, which is that reward drug, and it makes you feel great. So if you look at that to-do list and then switch it around and do a to-do list, ta-da, for all the things that you've managed to achieve, then you incentivize the brain to keep moving forward. If the brain thinks that you're constantly giving it more tasks to do, you're not going to incentivize it. You're not going to make yourself feel good. So you need to give it an incentive. So you need to keep rewarding yourself, Tom, and being pleased with your achievements, like coming today and celebrating and thinking, wow, haven't I done well? But perhaps it would be a really good thing for you to actually sit down and write a list of all the things you've achieved this year.
Yeah, I think it would. I think I'd be a bit mind blown about
your
how much I have
dopamine,
achieved. Yeah,
dopamine's like the Kim Kardashian.
It would really spur me on for another burst. I really need to do that when I get home. The other big thing that I've learned is, why is self-care so important? And you've been going on to me for ages about it. But it's making the time not just to do that and to review your goals and stuff like that, but to have the balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of you can only work so hard. You can only take so much messy action.
Yeah. And it's valuing yourself.
Yeah.
Because you have to value yourself. So if you don't value yourself, no one else is going to prioritise that.
And it massively affects your confidence.
Oh, absolutely. And, we both like clothes. I like wearing clothes that make me feel good.
Yeah.
It's like a wrapper, isn't it?
Yes.
And it actually gives you confidence, doing things that I enjoy doing, spending time with people that make you feel good. I laugh, and my clients laugh when they first meet me, but I say, this is not, if you're feeling low, this is not a time to, spend any time with toxic people. If there are people in your life that don't make you feel good, keep them at arm's length.
Yeah.
And if they are, perhaps they might be part of your family and you can't really do anything about that, then consider the other people that are in your life and
Yeah.
spend more time with them so you've got a nice balance.
I would say build a network around you of people that support you and
yes.
help you thrive and then match your energy
Yeah,
and
you want
make you
cheerleaders.
feel great. Yeah.
Cheerleaders. You want to surround yourself with people that celebrate you, that you feel comfortable with, that they praise you, that, you know, because then that's self-care. That's better self-care than bubble baths, you know, and, you know, going off and, you know, eating a chocolate bar. Those things make you feel fantastic. Surrounding yourself with people that are going to lift you up, not knock you down.
Yeah.
That's really important.
So I'm going to put you on the spot
Go
before
on.
we finish. If people now listening to this are thinking, I really need to start working on my confidence, get rid of that self-doubt, what would your 3 tips be?
I would say know your skills and strengths, write them down. You can write them down on your phone, or you can write them down on a piece of paper. Keep reviewing them. Ask other people what your strengths and skills are. You know, really, really find that information out and keep records of it and add to it. I would say self-care. You know, really think about making yourself feel good. And then the third one is taking action, working out what, you know, taking action, working out what your goal is and moving towards that in small, achievable steps. Break down your goals, visualize them really, really well, and then just move towards that goal. That's what I would say.
There you go. You heard it from the lady herself. I want to hear anyone who's been listening, I want you to tell me what messy action you've been taking towards your goals, because I think that is my biggest takeaway, is just go in that direction. Even if you've got a busy life, but take one little step this week. Send one email to somebody and you'll be surprised at how much reward just that one email can bring you back.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Charlotte. I mean, we could chat forever.
I could talk for a long
and we
time.
do normally about this stuff. But I think it's been great. If you don't already, follow Charlotte at Spark Hypno on Instagram. And Charlotte shares loads of tips about getting through anxiety and boosting your confidence and getting rid of self-doubt and all of that sort of stuff. So do give her a follow. And I'll let you go and enjoy the show now and have a look around.
Thank you, Tom.
I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, brilliant.